I think in terms of like, when you're talking about the device and things like that, I know I get bored. I get bored easily. I'll come
Hmm.
up with an idea and go off on one for a couple of months, and some things work, some things don't work, and then you get interested in something else. Um, I can't remember being like that at school. I think that was just starting the business. I think,
So then what did you do A levels? Did you go to uni?
yeah, A levels, and then I was at uni at Manchester UMIST.
Ah,
UMIST
UMass.
doesn't exist anymore.
Does it not?
Um,
I almost went to UMist.
yeah,
And it's what did you study?
well, so it's a vocational degree. It's optometry. So you do 3 years at a university, then a year training under somebody. And I did my training at Sunderland Eye Infirmary, and I still work there a day a week. Um, and I opened my practice. Actually, so I opened practice 20 years ago this year, because it's 20-year anniversary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's one of the things I was going to say is that with when you said before about how you're not a business person and an entrepreneur, you kind of are, and it's just, but it, the percentage of businesses that make it to 20 years is pretty impressive.
I don't think, when you said about the money, I think that's the one thing that I've always done, is I've never really thought about the money.
Hmm.
All of the decisions, whether to produce the device
Hmm.
or to do the business, or all the different directions we go in, it's not. I don't think we think about. I don't think I think about the money first. It's the doing a good job and making a difference first. And I think if you're then good at the job, then the money comes
Yeah,
afterwards.
but I think that's the
Um,
best way that everything should be, because especially now, we spoke before about how for a lot of things social media is really important, where you're trying to get a feel for this whole Simon Sinek thing about your why, your reason, whatever. You do see people who, in my opinion, do stuff for the wrong reasons. So they run a business to do something you see online. It's something called drop shipping, where they buy stuff here, they turn it around, they sell it over there, and they try and make a few quid doing it. But they're doing it to try and get rich, not because they actually care about the stuff or the product or the customer. And these things soon fade away, because actually when you hit some barriers or whatever, people give up. As well, when people genuinely have a love for a product or a service or a topic or whatever, and it's the kind of thing that you would probably do even if you didn't get paid for it, that passion does, for me at least, come across. That they're the people that you kind of want to work with. Does that make sense? And then one of the reasons I love to do long form podcasts is because over the course, like half an hour, you get a really good feel for someone that you never get, or you wouldn't have got 10, 20 years ago if it was just print media or
yeah, yeah,
standard stuff. And I think it is really important. So something must have kept you kind of driving away to kind of do that, I guess.
yeah. Well, yeah, I like the feeling of helping people, and I like the feeling of helping people um, that nobody else can. So I think that's why we got involved in all the complex cases that we see, and people with learning disabilities. Um, I don't want to get all heavy in a podcast, but like I guess the difficulty is that certain complex conditions aren't really funded very well,
Hmm.
and if you look at us as a practice, so like we're a very mixed practice, so we have very kind of cheap glasses, we have very expensive
Hmm.
glasses, we've
Hmm.
got Lindbergh glasses that cost £400-500, and I think we can only do some of the really good things that we do because it's funded by some people buying more
Yeah.
expensive products, and that's a little bit frustrating. It would be nice to be able to fund the things we do just because of the things we do, rather than have to um sell premium products.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a mix.
Yeah, cool. I should say, Phil, thank you for the comment. But I think a lot of businesses have that. I have that. So my startup is about trying to bring free business education to the world. And I'm massively passionate that I get how education can help improve lives. And especially because me growing up, I could never have afforded to do certain things. And now that I can, but to fund all of that, because I chose not to get external funding because I want to give it away for free, I have to do a lot of consultancy and
Yeah.
stuff, which is my equivalent of selling the different classes. But it's to get the leverage and get that rock moving and just get some momentum. That'll take me 2-3 years from like where I am now.
Mm.
But it's the picking your poison that I have the bigger vision that I want to do. Because one thing that I've thought of, and I think a lot of people that are freelance that kind of work for themselves, is that if they only ever do consultancy work or projects for people, but they're not necessarily building something in the same way we are, it's like doing 4 or 5 part-time jobs, and it can feel a bit soulless at sometimes because you don't feel like you're making momentum. As where the products that you choose to sell, it's enabling the dream, in which case, brilliant. Everyone has parts of their
Yeah.
business or job.
Well, Yeah, I mean, I've probably been a bit, because the products we choose to sell, we still choose to sell. So I mean, we're going into like a very sustainable
Hmm.
way of doing things now, and we're quite. I mean, we've got every single sustainable frame that's on the UK market at the minute. It's about 15, 16 ranges of frames. And we're going, and I think that's quite good, because if we're selling something, then we're endorsing it. So I wasn't trying to say that we were kind of selling just for the sake of selling, but it's I think it is sometimes frustrating that I think some of the best things we do at the practice, I don't think are funded by themselves, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. And but my point of almost mentioning it was
Yeah.
that for anyone, not so much for you, but anyone watching this, that's quite common. Does that make sense? And it's everyone has a prime example. If you pick sports cars, I've always been a fan of kind of cars. If you look at Porsche or Ferrari or even big fashion brands, so fashion brands want to create and design and push the boundaries and look at cool stuff. But if you take Chanel or Gucci or Burberry or whatever, they don't actually make any money on the fashion stuff, which is the couture stuff that you see in Milan or catwalks. They actually make the money off perfumes and bags and
Mm.
stuff. But that enables them to follow the dream. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think optometry, it's got to get really heavy, but I think
That's fine.
optometry
That's
is
fine.
a very strange industry, because as a profession, if you think of any professional, teachers, doctors, you come out of university, you come out of your training, and you know nothing, and then you work under somebody, you learn your trade, you learn
Hmm.
until you get to a certain point where you're responsible for lots of different people, and you can kind of teach lots of different people. Optometry, you don't ever do that. I
Hmm.
think you come out of university, you're expected to know everything from day one.
Got you.
There's very little support, and then you always stay at the same level. It's a funny old industry. But maybe we shouldn't get depressing on it.
Well, no,
Let's
but again, but when I mentioned at the start about how talking about real stuff, because
yeah,
this is one of my pet peeves that I see on YouTube all the time, is that I follow a lot of startup stuff and fundraising stuff and whatever. And the dream that most of them sell is you create a startup to create the world's biggest, best optometry brand. But the dream they sell is almost, oh, if you can raise £5 million or £100 million, you've won. As where I disagree, it's like if you can build a business which is
yeah,
profitable without the money, then you've won because you've reached steady state kind of something. Is
yeah.
there actually I think the things that are celebrated and almost the mechanisms are wrong at the moment for what a lot of people talk about, because they focus on the wrong stuff that they get celebrated on, likes, views, whatever. As I
Mm,
have mad crazy respect for anyone that's built a business and stuck it out for 20 years, because that takes real grit and kind of determination.
yeah. And I guess the other thing is, I don't want to get to the end of my career and think, gosh, I've made a lot of money in the practice. I want to get to the end of my career and think, I've built that. I'm going to leave that, and we're a community practice, and we've made a difference, and it's going to be still there. And that's what drives me more than the money, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think after realistically you earn, it depends on your family and stuff, but over a certain amount, you don't really need any more money. And I think then in some ways, pay myself less now than I've ever been paid for a while. But I get my fulfillment through actually trying to create stuff and talk to people. And it doesn't matter how much I get paid, it's about other stuff. And, that's
Mm.
often with a lot of people, it's called ikigai, but it's almost trying to find the dream of something that you really enjoy doing, almost regardless of the metrics, which myself 10 years ago, it was about the car and the salary and the status and the stuff. And I think it's interesting just as you kind of go through your kind of career. So, out of interest,